there, this is episode 90 of the first 10 minutes. I'm Tony Parmenter.
I'm Steve Halliwell.
And I'm Aaron Williams.
And this is a video games podcast where we play the first 10 minutes of a video game. Then we sit down here to discuss how well that game communicates itself to the player, both in terms of what the game is about and how to play the game. And in response to our latest listener poll, which you can find at the first 10 minutes on Twitter, we passed a milestone this week of reaching 200 followers, which means we're playing the top 2 games as voted by you, the listeners. Last episode, we played Dream Daddy, a dad dating simulator, and this episode, we are playing Tacoma. I played Tacoma. Would you like to hear all about it?
Tell me everything about Tacoma.
I will tell you as much as I can about the first 10 minutes of Tacoma.
All right, fine.
So, Wikipedia categorically defines Tacoma, parentheses, video game as Tacoma is an adventure video game by Fullbright released for Linux, Microsoft Windows, Mac OS, and Xbox One platforms in August 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Nice and
succinct.
That
was recent.
It was. And Steam tags for Tacoma indicate that this is an indie adventure walking simulator, female protagonist, sci-fi, story-rich, space exploration, Illuminati, first-person mystery, single-player video game.
Did you say Illuminati?
I did
an
say
Illuminati mystery.
Yes.
No less.
A story-rich Illuminati.
This is Did Dan Brown write this game?
Sorry. Maybe.
Get it?
That's a name I've heard before.
Yep.
I want to go walking into a famous museum or art gallery in Europe and say, where do you keep the code?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking for the code. I want to get some photos with the code.
I'm here on behalf of Nicolas Cage. I could really do with finding your secrets.
So having successfully self-derailed this episode within the first couple of minutes, let's try and get
Let's
it back
continue
on
with
track.
some cursory Googling. Good point,
Yes.
Tony.
Yep.
So on multiple fronts, I'm assuming we're about to learn about the city of Tacoma in Washington. It's on the banks of the either Puget Sound or Puget Sound. I'm not sure. It's near Seattle. It's known for its Museum of Glass. Also, my cursory Googling would reveal that Illuminati is indeed a popular Steam tag. For those of you playing at home, it is less popular than Tower Defense, but more popular than character customization.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to point out that that my personal familiarity with the word Tacoma involves the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, which was a very famous bridge that collapsed back in the 40s as a result of oscillation caused by strong winds. Is a fun
I
fact
remember that
for you.
thing.
Yes. But would you like to hear about...
not in person, on location.
Would you
Revealed,
like to
Illuminati.
hear about... would you like to hear about Tacoma, the video game?
I would.
Excellent. Let's commence then. So the main menu for this game is very Spartan and very straightforward. It is a plain black background with plain white text. I guess you could kind of say that this is similar to a Kubrickian kind of set of credits.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So the word Tacoma underlined as a heading, and then the options are start new game, options, and quit. Nice and simple and straightforward. So kicking off and loading the game, we get a loading screen of full moon with the word loading, ellipses, written across it. And as the loading continues, you start to see an eclipse passing across the moon. Then when we get into the game itself, the first thing that we hear is a female voice saying, okay, Minnie, ready to start docking sequence? And then a second voice, also feminine sounding, but clearly artificial, says, okay, with kind of that inflection.
All right.
So who has seen...
Is it like the announcer in Wave Race 64?
I'm not intimately familiar with that game, but what I will say
That's
is that...
cool. I did it for the one person listening who's going to go, yeah.
Right.
And it'll be me when I'm listening back to this episode.
Very good. What immediately jumped into my head was the film Moon.
Okay.
It immediately made me think of the robot whose name I can't remember now, who was voiced by Kevin Spacey. But it already has this kind of canned quality to it. This sounds like
Sam. I think it was Sam.
Might have been. Another way of putting this is this sounds like the kind of intonation and the kind of quality level that you would expect to hear coming out of a soft toy with a pull ring on the back.
Yep.
It was not Sam. Just incidentally, it was pretty far from that. It was Gertie.
That's pretty far from Sam.
So
that's quite. You know why I thought Sam? Sam Rockwell.
Right.
That'd do it.
So I'm hearing
that's where the confusion.
I'm hearing Minnie and this other character, who I'm assuming is me, speaking over a plain black screen. And Minnie continues and says, "Engaging retro thrusters now," and upon conclusion of that line, all of the graphics of the game just kick in. Blam, and I hear retro thrusters firing. I'm clearly in a cockpit. There are a few quite colourful and clear display panels around me, and immediately ahead out in the void of space, I can see a space station. Again, I'm probably going to use the word Kubrickian a few times here because it is something similar to what you might imagine from 2001. It's a big orbital sort of multi-ringed space station. Although it is quite dark. I can see it illuminated by a number of point lights that are on it, but the overwhelming brightness of this is from the cockpit that I'm in, and then a few of the elements of the space station that is immediately ahead of me. Now, the readouts that are around me, I mean, there's a status window on the left. There's Minnie with a little icon of a single kind of cartoony eyeball over on the right-hand panel. And then there are a couple of sort of panels down in the lower center. All of these are quite plain, and there's some very colorful elements like red through yellow to green, kind of gradient of a couple of meters, but none of these are really clearly labeled. However, these thrusters and the sudden impact of all of these visuals kicking in, and this dead center of screen space station that I'm heading towards, give me a very clear and immediate idea of where I'm heading to and what situation I'm in. This feels like a compact cockpit. It feels like a small, confined space. And then as this kicks in, we're accelerating towards the space station quite quickly, and the main title of the game, Tacoma, appears in giant white text across the entire center of the screen, overlaid over the graphics. Minnie then indicates that we're heading towards a space station which is called Tacoma, and it's a lunar transfer facility. And Minnie also says that the station AI is offline and the crew have been evacuated. So the intonation of Minnie is continuing as this very chirpy, very upbeat, kind of cheerful tone. So it's like, station crew evacuated, station AI offline. So my character then questions whether or not there's breathable air on board. Minnie indicates that it should be fine, and then says that docking is commencing. Now, as all of this is happening, the ship is kind of wheeling and zooming around this station. We're now passed around to the far side from what we originally saw, and this large spoke down the central axis of these rotating rings is now pointing directly towards the cockpit. And I hear a little bit of music sort of starting to kick in. I find it challenging to describe music sometimes, but let's just say that the feeling that it evokes in me is that there is something that is a weird blend of mundane and grandiose happening, because I'm about to dock with the space station, which is not something that the majority of humans alive on this planet in 2017 have ever done before. But this does feel like a fairly routine operation, given this particular setting. Now, something happened that surprised me. It's the game has gone to such great lengths to clearly keep the space station in view the entire time as we're wheeling around it, and the ship has aligned itself pointing dead down this spoke axis. Then it starts, the ship wheels, kind of like spins and pivots on the spot clockwise around, so that the station actually completely disappears from my view because the ship has turned itself into reverse and is now going to start traveling backwards out of my sight towards the space station. So we get the angle of the sun and the light and everything changing, and then as everything comes to rest, pointing directly away from the space station, the Earth comes into view and stops dead center of the cockpit window, with the sun very bright off to the right-hand side. And as everything starts to settle and the ship is moving backwards, then I slowly start to see this spoke, this sort of hollow spoke that I'm heading down, appear around the sides of the cockpit. So it looks like I'm traveling backwards through a tunnel, but the Earth is still dead center at the end of this tunnel.
Nice.
I then hear sort of some clicking and docking sounds. The mini display off to my right says "docked!" ! And Minnie then exclaims, "Docked!"
Yay!
To go along with this visual indicator. My character,
Tony.
yeah, go for it.
So just quickly, I just want to ask, is Minnie sticking around for the full 10 minutes?
No.
No.
Okay, that's a shame. I'm now actually quite anxious, but the question that I want to ask you is, so you mentioned earlier sort of Minnie's assessment of the ship and those within it, and you said that it was because it was still delivered with it was still delivered with her intonations, her sort of cheery disposition.
Yes.
Is that meant to play as humorous, do you think?
I don't think it's meant to play as humorous. I think it's meant to play as this is I get the sense that if Minnie is, air quotes, artificial intelligence, this is going to sound so judgmental. She's not a terribly sophisticated one because it sounds like her affectations are intentionally programmed to always be cheerful so that the factual information that she is divulging is presented in a palatable style.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like she's experiencing any emotions. It feels like she's delivering information through this forced, canned tone.
And the way that you're describing the voice makes it seem like the AI isn't generating speech. It has a bank of words and sentences it can draw from to vocalize rather than it being able to create its own.
Yep. So in response to the docked line from Minnie, my character responds, "Nice, thanks, Minnie."
Nice.
Cool.
Yep.
Yeah, nice.
So at this point, I'm clearly in first-person mode. I'm clearly sitting in the cockpit of the ship. This first-person view starts to move of its own accord, and this is where I realise that what the game is doing is very similar to, say, something out of Firewatch, or if you want a more exaggerated, more overblown example, pick any Ubisoft game where you're in first-person mode. My character is moving and doing things in this cockpit as they begin to unfasten their harnesses and so on and so on. There's also a regular clanking and clunking sound that started now that we're docked. So my character reaches forward with both arms to this lower center display and actually folds two halves of this display up like a book and then detaches it from this cockpit panel and starts to turn it around in her hands. There is a pasted text kind of on masking tape with handwriting on it that says Amy, Tacoma job on the front cover of this if it were a real book. And this character, Amy, I'm assuming is me, turns this around in the hand and I can see kind of like the little slots along the spine that it's used to actually attach, presumably where the information transfer occurs between this physical device and the cockpit display. I can also see that the suit that I'm wearing, I mean, it looks space suity, but it doesn't look giant and bulky, and it's black and gold in terms of its coloration.
Ooh.
So my character takes this and looks like she fastens this sort of book tablet onto her right hip, then puts her arms onto the arms of the chair, which then pushes backwards about a meter or a meter and a half, and then the character begins to unfasten her harnesses, first from the shoulders and then from lower down, slowly pivots around, plants feet firmly on the ground as you're looking down, at which point some red lights on the boots turn green as I can hear magnets kind of kick in and attach.
Yep.
So I'm now firmly attached to the ground of the ship. Then the character, Amy, stands up and looks directly ahead. A tiny dot of a reticle appears in the center of the screen, and I'm now in control of the camera. So there are so many things that have happened here to embody me in this game, because I've literally just watched the character who I am in this game do a whole bunch of very mundane physical tasks involving the manipulation of human-scale objects in this game, including devices that they're taking with them, as well as physical parts of their body with the boots attaching to the ground and unfastening clasps from being in this chair. I really, really, really appreciate when a game goes to such great lengths to make me feel like I'm existing at physical scale in a game world.
Totally.
Yep. And it's done all of this very swiftly. Like, it doesn't feel rushed, but it also doesn't feel like it's overstaying its welcome. It feels functional, but it also feels very, very considered. None of these things feel like things that are occurring because it's a video game. These all feel like things that are occurring because that is what this character needs to do in the situation that she is in.
Yeah, like I was going to ask, does it feel like you're doing your job?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Cool.
And a lot of it feels like the job is being done without having to think about it. These don't feel like considered actions. They feel like kind of automatic actions. So
this is maybe not the first rodeo.
This is the second rodeo for Fullbright.
Yeah,
is that what you're saying?
This is my second space rodeo.
Fullbright's second rodeo. Oh, you were talking about the character, not the developer, right?
Oh yes, you were talking about the developer.
I was.
Yes. Well, I guess in that sense, much like Brian Lee O'Malley's Seconds, it's got some layers to it, just like Shrek.
Right. Now, the listeners, I'm assuming, will have an advantage over you two gentlemen here. Listeners, the footage of this gameplay is available if you check the show notes and so on, and I would encourage you to go and have a look at them. But neither of you two have actually watched this video of my playthrough yet, have you?
No.
Okay, we're going to play a little game.
Nor have I played Tacoma.
We're going to play a little game here. Now that I am removed from my seat and I've turned around and I'm now standing firmly fastened to the ship, what do you expect that I see directly ahead of me?
I assume, given how cramped you described the cockpit, that you just see an airlock door, or perhaps like a ladder leading to a lower deck behind you, and that's it.
Right. What if I told you, to quote Morpheus, that the entire right hand, the entire right hand side of this sort of hallway or bulkhead that I can see is kind of box plywood, like you'd expect to see on the side of like construction boxes.
Okay.
With the
is
Wild
this an
Westy,
IKEA space station?
Not quite, but it's got the Wild Westy kind of stenciled text on it that says, "Caution: AI hardware enclosure. Do not tamper."
Okay.
And then there's a bunch of handwritten stuff from like a Texapen or a Sharpie beneath this that says Obsidian class HW install verified OK second 2988. So I realize that
Radiohead reference.
I realize that I'm in control here. It also says sim run 10,000 of 10,000 OK verified by H. That's what this handwritten text says on the side of this box. So I realize that this kind of bulkhead or this door immediately behind me Like, is the back of my ship literally right behind my chair? Or is this part of the ship that I'm in? I wasn't entirely sure of this because then I realized that the clunking noise was continuing and it sounded like it was now sort of coming from behind me. So I turned back to look out of the cockpit window, and that's when I realized that this kind of open spoke tunnel that I was heading backwards for has been retracting this whole time since I docked.
What?
And again, as a way of showcasing what the station is doing as part of the process of a ship docking with it, similar to how I've just operated my physical human body, this space station is now operating itself physically as well. The game hasn't called my attention to this. It's just something that I happened to notice. And again, it was a little touch that I appreciated. Very soon after I turn around, this retraction completes, and then I'm struck by how quiet it gets. Like, really quiet. Like, really quiet.
But not too quiet. Just pretty quiet.
It was a noticeable change. So I turn back around and I start heading back down this corridor. I take a closer glance at this sort of box with the writing on it. I have to do a little bit of a dogleg to work around this. I see some contraptions and a lot of pipes attached to the wall. Again, these all look like functional units. One of them is a big blue container that has H2O written on it. There are some other colours, I'm assuming various gases and liquids that are necessary for the operation of the ship. Then I get to a clear bulkhead door that is closed with, again, a very obvious handle that I have to manipulate to open it. It doesn't point this out to me at all, but it doesn't need to, because the construction, again, of the physical objects in the game world makes it very clear to me that this is a door and this is the bit that you need to operate to open this door.
Yep.
So now my assumption is that this is probably the back of my ship, which means that all of that stuff that I just passed was on my ship. So maybe that is actually a new AI piece of hardware that I have brought with me to the station.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe. Yep.
So as I get close to this physical handle on the door, it's a quadrant of a circle, like with a lever arm that's horizontal, and like a groove that I have to pull it up to make this handle go vertical. My tiny little dot reticle, as I approach this, expands to a circle with a dot in the middle of it, and the text "Open Airlock Door" appears. So I click on it. And we get, again, a little bit of a camera control taken away from me as my character's arms reach out, grasp this handle, turn it vertical. I hear the door open. It was at this point when control was removed from me again that I realized that this game has a very 1990s kind of excessive field of view vibe going.
Right.
Okay.
And once I noticed that, I did start turning the camera around a little bit because it was very quaky.
Okay.
Or very System Shocky. And System Shock, in terms of tone, I'm already getting that, just oodles of it oozing out of how this thing is feeling. If anyone's played System Shock 2, that is also set on a spaceship, yes.
Is it? Because I played 10 minutes of it and that didn't happen.
Right. The other thing that I noticed, throwing some shade at System Shock 2.
That's a little callback right there. Yep.
The other thing that I noticed...
And
The other thing that I notice is because of this perspective distortion, my arms look quite long when I reach out, and I'm not talking about Jurassic Park Trespasser. My arm is literally like 4 feet long.
Yeah,
This just looks like perspective distortion.
Yep.
Very satisfying set of Foley and clicks and so on. Nice particle effects and a hissing sound as this door opens. My character indicates to Minnie that she's going to proceed, and she'll talk to her when she gets back and says, "Don't let anyone scan the ship while I'm gone." And Minnie responds with, "Okay." Like exactly
The same delivery? Yep.
the same delivery.
Yep, nice.
And when I heard that exact same delivery, I went, okay. And then the character in the game goes, okay. So the game made me say what the character said just as the character was saying it, which doesn't happen often, but I really like it when that happens.
Yep.
I approach another... Sorry, go ahead, Steve.
So you just opened your airlock. Did you notice if you happen to have a helmet on?
I'm assuming that I already do, but I'm not getting any visual indicators. There's no like blurring or border or boundary around the sides of this thing.
Okay.
But I approach another airlock door that kind of a circular motif kind of door, and it has a glowing panel in the center of it that has two kind of arrowheads pointing in either direction, kind of like a play and a reverse play next to each other.
Okay.
And again, the reticule expands and it tells me open airlock door. So I reach forward with my hand and I tap this button, and when it appears, it is replaced. Sorry, when I tap it, that disappears and is replaced with text that says "Danger! Airlock door in motion." A giant ring of light lights up around this central section, and it gradually grows. So it goes ding, ding, ding with 3 sound tones as this glowing section expands. And then when it reaches that third tone, the door then opens. And again, the sense that I got from all of this was that there is a great deal of consideration being paid to how this object operates in this game world so that the information it communicates is necessary for the safety and well-being of people who operate it. This is not telling me video game information. This is telling my character of Amy information that is necessary for her being in this space.
It's kind of reminded me a little bit of a lot of the objects that you interact with in Alien Isolation.
Yes. Yep.
And sort of the weight that exists with operating a lot of that technology.
Yeah. The benefit is that it's also teaching me, the player, a lot about how this world operates.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
But there's no artifice. Like, it's not a layer on top of the game world. It is completely within the game world.
Yeah.
So this door opens. It opens fairly slowly. I can see how thick it is. And I'm now presented with with another space that is quite dark, although there is a bright pillar kind of in the center of it. And there are some lines of kind of bright lighting in strips that are kind of framing the central pillar. I walk towards it, and as I approach it, I can see that it is clearly some sort of a podium or almost like a vending machine. And there is a clear section on it that looks like the part that you're supposed to operate because it's got the most detail on it. Pardon me. So as I approach it, I put the cursor over it, and it does indeed tell me open lid. So I click on it, and it folds up. And inside there is almost like a large sort of button or tab with the letter L on it, and another one next to it with the letter R on it. I can also see a sketch of a human head kind of half faced away from me with a bright red dot just behind its ear and an arrow pointing towards it. And the tooltip in the game UI tells me, take hardware. This is hardware without the H, but the A and R are capitalized. So my automatic assumption is this is augmented reality hardware that has a very clever title.
Yes.
So I press the button to take the hardware, and my character reaches out, grabs the L1 in her left hand, the R1 in her right hand, sort of examines them. I can see microchippy sort of stuff on the reverse side. And then she reaches up first to place the left item on, and then to place the right item on. As each of these occur, all of the strip lighting around the sides of the room pulses as I put them on. And on the left of screen, left hardware node attached appears as text, and on the right side of screen, right hardware node attached appears as text. Okay. I then get a bit of a static haze, I get a sound pulse, and I get a whole bunch of like BIOS boot up information starts scrolling in the top left-hand corner of the screen.
Cool.
An icon with the letter T on it, sort of like an app icon from a phone, appears in the center of the bottom of the screen with the letter T and a blue arrow. And beneath this, it says Venturis Technologies AROS Initializing Augmented Reality Operating System, AROS. I get a loading bar. I get a couple of chime sounds. Hello, user, initializing, blah, 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 blah. And then this it was like a tesseract kind of object with an eyeball kind of on each face of this inverted pyramid appears, and it starts sort of flickering around in front of me. And then a couple of floating panels embedded in world space, but clearly augmented reality, appear that say, "Welcome aboard, Odin Station II, pre-recorded message. Listen carefully for instructions from Odin." And then Odin begins speaking to me in a very...
And it's Anthony Hopkins?
No, it's a rich baritone kind of voice. The voice to me sounds... it's not quite Keith David, but that's what it made me think of, like a very low, rich kind of delivery. I'm not sure if it is in fact him, but that's, I guess, if you've played a lot of video games and you've heard dialogue before, that might be a name that jumps to mind. But I'm afraid I don't know exactly who it is. So Odin speaks to me for a while, essentially welcoming me and saying, this is a pre-recorded message, blah, 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 blah. But in order for you to proceed, you have to kind of sync yourself with the augmented reality system to set up your station profile. And it requires positional data to be set up. So then a glowing white humanoid figure appears standing on the other side of this panel, and Odin asks me to walk up to this figure and place my right palm on their raised left palm for their tracking system to be calibrated. And the AR figure's palm is also surrounded by a big ring. So I walk around, I walk up to it, I click on the hand, it says place hand, and I do so. I see Amy reach her hand up, place it palm to palm, and then Amy raises her left hand, and I can see the AR figure is now copying the actions. And this is further reinforced to me that after both palms are placed on one another, Amy tilts her head to the right, and I can see the figure's head tilt in accordance, and the entire world shift around it. So this is clearly calibrating and syncing everything up together as hands are moving around and so on. So body positional dating has now been registered with Tacoma AI, yada, yada, yada. And then a huge panel, again an AR panel, appears across the doorway that is now right in front of me that says, "Please sign in," with a finger tappy icon below it. Mm-hmm. So to confirm my identity, I walk forward to this thing. I go to tap on the hand icon. As I get close to it, it is replaced with almost like a confirmation of contractor agreement, then a bunch of text that I don't read. But down the bottom it says signed, sign in, and I tap on this. It's replaced with a little text input bar, and then Amy raises her left hand up and does a series of hand finger gestures that equate to letters that are automatically typed into this text bar. And I discover
it's like a sign language.
Yeah, like a sign language. Yep. I discover that Amy's name is Amy Ferrier, Ferrier. And then with her right hand, she reaches up and does a little circular motion with her finger, and that concludes the gesture. A little OK icon appears, and Odin says thank you, and then all of this disappears and the door opens in front of me. It's a male voice. Odin's icon, Tesseract kind of inverted pyramid icon, appears floating in front of me. I'm now faced with a very, 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 very long corridor with a vanishing point, but there's a little trolley with a hand lever. Amy reaches out and grasps this with her left hand and then pushes forward on it, and then I start moving forward down this rail. I can see that I'm heading down towards the station proper. And Odin's telling me a bunch of introductory information when all of a sudden his voice starts distorting. The Tesseract object starts distorting and going all fractal and crazy, and then completely vanishes, and all of the speaking stops. I'm then propelled forward into the sort of central hub of this station. So I'm going to try to describe this. I hope that this works. You're all familiar with the concept of a ring station, right? Where you have a central spoke where there is no gravity. Then you have a bunch of arms heading out to connect rings and those rings are all rotating. So there's air quotes gravity caused by centrifugal force out on the rings. So imagine a set of these rings that are all rotating, but they're counter-rotating. So the first one might be rotating clockwise, the second one will be rotating counterclockwise, like a bunch of different wheels all on the same axis. On the same axle. Yep.
Yep, like a gearbox setup.
Yep. I'm now in the very, very center of all of these spinning wheels that are counter-rotating, and I'm in an open area with a bunch of airlocks that are now all open. So some parts of this corridor in front of me are rotating clockwise, some of them are rotating counterclockwise, and I'm in 0G, and it's very disorienting.
Oh boy, I'm going to vomit when I play this game.
I can see that in each of these different wheels in this hub have signs on them. So I can see one that says engineering. It is immediately in front of me and is also upside down. I can see biomedical a little bit further down. I can see cryogenics. I can see all of these different signs all around me. And then some in-AR text flashes across my field of vision that says Tacoma Station data network warning, massive data loss detected. Recoverable data found, entering data recovery mode, ... I'm perfectly stationary, but it's only when I start looking around and try to move that I realize that I am in 0G and there are lots of objects floating around. I can hear little thrusters firing as I go to maneuver. And I start to move around just to try and get a sense of how to move in this space. I thrust back towards the door that I came through, and I come across an object that's floating in front of me. It tells me I can pick it up, so I do. And then some UI appears that says, hold left trigger to examine what you're holding. So I hold the left trigger volume. It tells me to move the right analog stick to rotate what I'm examining. I'm playing with a controller, obviously. Yep. This object that I have in front of me has text on it that says automated air filtering drone with a serial number and then air quotes Romeo. So I start rotating this box and device around, trying to see if it's going to highlight any particular area to me or if there's anything I'm supposed to do with this or click on. It doesn't appear to be the case. It's just an object that I picked up. So now the game has taught me that I can pick them up. It's taught me that I can look at them. I wasn't forced into picking up this object, but there are plenty of them floating around that I could have picked up to get these cues of how to manipulate objects.
And
so I turn back around.
It's just giving you like a UI pulse when your cursor goes over them.
Yes, same UI pulses when I open the door and when I put on the hardware and so on. So I start maneuvering around. There are some hatches and panels in the wall where it says access denied. It doesn't look like I can get through them. And as I'm moving around, I have no sense anymore of what way is up or what way is down or what way I'm supposed to be going. But I'm trying to get a handle on maneuvering around. At one point, I go into a section where on the walls are written things like red team 27, blue team 32, and then I notice that there are basketball hoops and backboards around the wall here, so, and there's a basketball floating around as well. So it feels like this little section of the hub is where they play their 0G basketball.
Cool.
Which I thought was a lovely little quality of life touch for people who are presumably living in this space. There are also a bunch of handwritten signs pasted around the walls that I didn't notice a lot when I was playing because I was too busy trying to maneuver in 0G. But there's a big arrow on the wall at one point drawn on this handwritten sign with the text, like nothing on Earth, which I'm also reading upside down. So at this point, a chime occurs, and that same app icon with the T and the blue arrow appears, and it's just pulsing in the center of my screen. Then some game tooltip appears that says press, and then an icon button that does not exist on my controller to toggle your AR desktop. Now, what it turned out to be was the back button, but it wasn't indicated with the icon of a back button.
What was it indicated with?
It almost looks like a kind of thing that you'd see for like tab window button or something like that. But at the time, I looked at it and went, what? And then I pressed a few buttons trying to figure out what I was supposed to do. But eventually, I figured out that it was the back button. And when that happened, it did take a while. It included me actually opening up the escape menu at one point, trying to figure out what the correct thing was. So at this point, a bunch of AR iconography appears, like it zooms in and appears around me. And over to my left, I can see the largest of these things, which I turn to look towards, and I see what I assume is me, because it looks like a personnel information card. There's a whole bunch of stuff written on this thing, including like there's a thumbprint. There are some QR code sections on it. There's an illustration, like a picture of my face. There's text on this in many different languages and many different scripts as well. I'm going to display my ignorance by saying that I don't even know what some of them are.
Okay.
Possibly Thai. There's some kanji on there as well. Anyway, apparently my full name is Amitjyoti, Amitjyoti Ferrier, but Amy for short, I'm assuming. It gives me my contractor registration number, my license issue date, my corporate security level, blah, 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 blah. I am apparently also from the California Republic, and this is my proof of technical certification. The game instructs me to hold left trigger to look closer, and when I hold the left trigger button down, it sort of pushes in a little bit, almost like the look closer at the scary thing in PT.
Like PT, yeah.
So I then start looking. Nice, you're welcome. So I start looking around at this thing. I release the trigger button to zoom back out again. Then I notice a bunch of other app icons, and then I make a very elementary and very interesting mistake, because I've forgotten that these buttons are AR overlays.
Yeah.
And I actually begin to walk forwards to press a button that I assumed was on the wall that is literally nowhere and just floating in front of my face. It was very cool.
Yeah, that's super good.
I made an elementary interaction error that presumably Amy would never make because she's used to this shit, but I am not used to this shit.
Yep.
So I took a quick moment to have a chuckle at myself. I then reversed my thrust to try and kill my momentum a little bit, and I started panning around to look at these different buttons and click on them. So I get a bunch of crew roster information, and I'm actually having to physically turn myself around to look at these different panels that are appearing on different sides of me, and I'm starting to click through different things and get a sense of, like, there are multiple layers to this. This is like exploring a website, but all of this is embedded in AR world space. So I go over and I find the icon that looked like the little notification that I found before with the T and the blue arrow on it. I click on it and it opens over on my left. It's like an email notification. And it says, from Venturis Technologies, subcontractor Ferrier, sign on to Tacoma's AR network successful. Please proceed to the personnel module to begin the AI transfer process. Your progress will be tracked. It also tells me down the bottom 2 of 2, and I see there's an arrow pointing to the left, so I've clearly missed a previous email. So what I infer from this is that I am here to transfer a new AI onto the station because something bad has happened. So I take a moment to read this email. I click on the back button to read the previous email, and it says, Subcontractor Ferrier, we have transmitted Tacoma docking codes to your Mini. Please proceed to the facility without delay. And this is where I realize that the term of your Mini kind of reinforces our assumptions from before, that this is kind of like a canned artificial companion or operation program.
So,
yeah,
how is Mini spelled?
It's spelled like a person's name, so it's a proper noun with a capital at the beginning, but it's not an initialism or an acronym. It's just Mini. Yeah. Okay, so I close this window and then I look at another icon below it that looks like a map, and it is indeed a map. It opens a 3D sort of glowing version of the entire station, and it's got my face with a little arrow pointing to the hub of this thing. But and it's all rotating and moving in real time. But at this point, I close down all of this. I then check to confirm that I can press the back button to open and close this at any time, and I can.
Mm-hmm.
So this is clearly a section that I'm meant to go to frequently to look for information, refer to correspondence, and so on. Immediately in front of me, I can see a sign that says personnel. So I head towards the door that says personnel access. I place the reticule over the tap icon. And when I do that, it automatically rotates and rights me so that I'm pointing in the correct orientation before I go through the door. When the door opens, I'm now looking down one of these big spokes heading out to one of the rings. And there is like a track along one wall. And Amy reaches down and grabs another handle with her right hand, places her foot into a foot lock with her right foot. So the left hand and left foot are now floating free, but I'm anchored at 2 points, and I now begin to descend down this long spoke, kind of standing on this 1 foot rest and holding a handle.
Yep.
Then what happened is, because I'm facing directly sideways onto this ever-scrolling elevator shaft wall, an AR ad appears directly in front of my face. And this AR ad is accompanied by some jingly-sounding music, and it is an ad for Venturis Belt Orbital Vacation Bungalows. And it's got a nice illustrated image of a family of 4. So it looks like there is a mum, a dad who is playing an acoustic guitar, a young boy and a young girl, and a puppy dog.
Good.
And outside I can see the Earth in space. The kids are playing with a ball and are floating around freely. The mother is lying on the floor reading a book or a note. The puppy dog is chasing a bone, and the dad is upside down playing the guitar. It's a lovely touch.
Does the dog look like it's enjoying the zero gravity?
It does. It looks like it wants that bone.
All right.
Some more text appears that tells me that this is the perfect family getaway, and it's coming in 2088. Pre-registration open now. So having absorbed all of this information, I then start looking around. I look down the shaft in the direction that I'm heading. I look back up the shaft that I'm heading in. There are rings of blue and red light passing by to give me a sense of motion. And this goes on for a while. I just started to wonder if this very, very long shaft was meant to be telling me how big the station is, or if it was just so that the game could load all of the stuff that it needs to load.
Why not both?
It turns out that it's probably more of the latter, because I actually get a game loading stall for a couple of seconds as I near the end of this. Then I hear a bunch of clinks and clanks, and it tells me now entering personnel module. This thing slows. I come to a rest. I detach my magnetized right foot and place both of them on the ground, and now the lights on my boots are red because I don't need gravity anymore, because now I'm in the rotating ring.
The magnets are
you're in the rotation zone.
Yes. Yep. So this app icon appears again. I open the AR. I cursor over it. And I did this automatically. So now I have already learned, when this icon appears and you hear this jingle, press the back button, cursor over this button, tap on it, read your email. Good reinforcement. This one tells me, from Venturis Technologies, subcontractor Ferrier, the company has remotely disabled the station AI's ability to directly affect operations on Tacoma or contact you via the station's ARNet. Any attempt to communicate with the AI is strictly prohibited. So there's clearly some bad shit. Clearly some bad shit going down here. So I read this. I shut the AR window down again. I head down the only corridor that I can head down. It turns to the right, and then immediately in front of me, I can see a red AR border on a wall with the word attention written on it. And I can also see in the ceiling that there's like a hatch that has a whole bunch of greenery growing through it. So I take a moment to look up at this greenery. I walk up to the attention sign on the wall, And underneath it, it says subcontractor Ferrier, AI data access here. So I'm like, I guess this is what I do then. It tells me open panel. When I cursor over it, I click the button. Amy taps the panel, it opens up, and I can now see an attachment point that looks exactly like the thing that I took the book panel out of on my ship.
Okay.
And it tells me attach data transfer device. So I click on it. Amy reaches up, puts the Amy Tacoma job booklet onto it, folds it open so that both of the screens are visible. Then this thing switches on, and the left panel tells me upload to docked vessel, personnel 0%, and then a loading bar very slowly starts building up. On the right-hand panel, it says inbound message. Okay, we can send you secure messages through this interface, but it's a one-way connection. We'll be monitoring the situation from here. It's going to take a while for the first part of the AI net to go up. This is no simple file transfer. And then a back arrow to go back to the previous window appears. At this point, the personnel upload is now at 0.2%. I cursor over this arrow. I scroll back to the previous message. I cursor to the other arrow, scroll forward to the other message, and then I hit 10 minutes. Okay. Questions? Don't hit me all at once.
Well, I got one.
Yep.
So that elevator advertisement was particularly interesting to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm getting the sense that something's wrong here.
Mm-hmm.
Something's a little bit off. So I'm wondering how far from that point of bad thing occurring we are. I'm wondering whether or not this elevator ad is potentially very dated.
Right. Well, the handwritten stuff on the AR box right back in my ship also had a date that was from the year 88 in it. Written on it. Then this ad was saying that 2088 is when these things are due to open. So it doesn't feel horribly, horribly out of date. But if you're talking about tonally, does this feel like it's from another time before the bad shit went down? Then it does feel like that.
Yeah, and so that's as well. So there's a like we kind of chuckled our way through that because we thought it's amusing.
Yep.
But was there also were there any other emotions that you felt when you were hit with that advertisement?
What it made me think was, oh God, if this were a place that I lived and worked, how many times do I see this shit just moving about doing my day-to-day job?
Yeah. And then how horrifying it must be to be someone who's coming in to clean up, a potentially horrific mess and also being presented with this.
Well, it feels like this is a thing that people do often. This is a place that people inhabit and live, but not anymore. And this is an artifact of a leftover time when there were people to advertise to. But it also made me very clear. It also made it clear to me at the very outset that the crew had been evacuated, and that the station AI was offline. Now, I don't know how truthful that information is, or how accurate that information is, or where that intel is coming from. But Amy, in her tone, when she's speaking to Minnie briefly there at the beginning, does not seem to be concerned, does not seem to be in any state of distress. She's just going about doing her job. But to me as a player, I'm seeing all the signs and signals here that there's something. Firstly, that something is broken, but it's almost got this ominous overtone of something is badly wrong, and it's wrong to the point where I have been prohibited to speak with the AI.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned Moon at the beginning of this episode as well.
Yes.
How much do you feel that Amy is potentially sort of in a Moon type situation? Like, how long do you think before before Amy gets a sense of the the severity of the of the potential wrongdoings happening on this space station.
I have literally not played any more of this game yet than what I recorded for this show.
Yep.
But the fact that all I was doing there at the moment was reading this message and watching a progress bar, there are a couple of things here that I'm anticipating are going to happen. Either I'm free to roam around this space because there were other things that were there that I hadn't had a chance to look at yet. I'm either going to get a chance to roam around and start getting a sense of other detail, and then something is actively going to interrupt me, or I was very close to already being interrupted. But it feels like I'm right at a critical juncture of the situation revealing itself not to me, but to Amy in a way that she cannot ignore.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know if that's true or not, but that's my assumption based on the trajectory of information that's being shown to me. There was a whole heap of me describing all of the things that I was seeing and doing, but kind of the point that I wanted to make, and maybe this is a launching off of stuff that maybe you want to comment on, is that everything that I was doing was something that Amy was doing in the course of performing her job.
Yeah.
And the context of all of it in terms of how it was being delivered to me, other than the occasional prompts to go, this is the controller button to do this thing.
Yeah.
It was all entirely in-world. And it was bridging that gap between I know things because Amy knows things. I learn things because Amy learns things. And as a way of drawing me into this world and into this space and making me feel, I think I said earlier, that physical embodiment is very palpable and very powerful.
And it's that very particular type of embodiment where it's not asking you to actually engage in the activities that Amy is engaging in. It's asking you to bear witness to it in a way that feels intrinsically connected to you.
Yes, and the part about it that genuinely excites me is that it has also shown me that these AR, too many abbreviations, the AR humanoids are also physically embodied. And it's given me a very literal visual attachment to that, because the only other humanoid figure that I have seen matched my movements as part of the calibration process. So this is a game that I've been... Sorry, go on.
So the significance of that, do you think moving forward you're going to see more of this?
That's my assumption, yes. And because I feel so physically embodied in this space, and I now have a direct attachment to an abstraction of a human figure through watching my body in this game interact with it, I'm now it's enforced to me that these other augmented humanoids are in fact, air quotes, real. And I'm assuming that's going to be pivotal to me interpreting a whole bunch of things that are going to happen during the course of this. So I just want to point out that that the developer of this game, Fullbright, the developers have gone home, which is a game that I greatly appreciated. And I've been looking forward to playing this game, Tacoma, for a very long time, and have intentionally avoided as much as I can in knowing anything about what this is about, other than that it was in space. So I don't have any clue as to what the rest of this game contains, because I have willfully and specifically avoided reading or listening to anything about it whatsoever. So I don't really have any insight to offer as to how this relates to the rest of the experience, but I can tell you that the richness of the moment-to-moment in this is very strong.
Well, if there's anything that I know about Fullbright, it's that they're not too bad at subverting expectations.
Nice. What if you have no expectations?
That's the tricky one, right? Because that's me with Tacoma as well. Right. I deliberately avoided pretty much everything for this.
Yeah.
I think I watched half of a trailer.
Right.
And then said, you know what? No, you've got me. I'm here. I'm gonna sit down to this.
And in fact, as a further confession, I have intentionally avoided playing any more of this because I wanted to have this conversation first and then see how wrong I am.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm over here stuck in trying to figure out this world.
Yep.
How many people do you think are meant to be on this spaceship? Or the space
when
station?
it's operating correctly? Given that I saw the space station at the beginning, given that I saw the map abstraction of it in my AR overlay, and given how long it took me to travel down the spoke, and I'm going to assume that it was world-to-world scale and not just game loading scale, this is a pretty big station.
It seems it from your descriptions.
The rings look narrow, but if you think about the circumference of these things, there's a lot of floor space in this thing, and there are multiple rings. So this doesn't feel like the Nostromo.
Right.
It's not a huge ship with only a few things on it, because it looks like, I mean, these counter-rotating rings only exist so that humans can move around them with ease.
Yep.
So it's not like there's a giant section of this station that is 0G or just there to store cargo or whatever. It's a lunar transfer facility, so I'm assuming that people come and go through this space all the time, which means there's not only going to be regular crew on board, but there are going to be transients, so there's people moving to or from the moon.
Yeah, so there's quarters and support staff, presumably for people who are using it as a transfer station between.
But I also saw cryogenics as a clearly labelled area, as well as engineering, as well as personnel, and so on. Yep.
The reason why
I would say in the dozens in terms of regular crew, but that is just purely a guess from my gut.
I think the reason why that's coming to mind is your AI buddy is called Minnie.
Yes.
Their AI is called Odin.
Yes.
So that there's one of those names doesn't sound very threatening. One of them sounds like this that's on a hair trigger and everything's going to go to shit. Obviously, Minnie. The other thing that strikes me as odd about this situation, and I'm wondering if it's going to be something that the story deals with, is who do you think owns this space station? Have you been given any hints?
No. Or if I was, then I missed them in amongst all of the dozens of other things that I was sort of interpreting and figuring out.
So you don't work for this company, you're a subcontractor.
Yeah.
Which could be getting around labour laws, who knows.
Uh-huh.
But you're using Ardware.
Yes.
Which is a separate brand from Minnie and Odin. And
I assume, I don't know.
Seems to be crucial to running the ship. You're not allowed on the ship without your Ardware.
And without getting calibrated for positional data and so on. What that also implies to me is that Odin knows where I am.
Yes, even though you're not allowed to talk to Odin, and Odin isn't allowed to talk to you.
Yes.
The thing that I
wanted to reinforce, if people missed it, that the Odin that I spoke to was a pre-recorded message. I wasn't actually speaking directly to Odin.
Yeah, it made a point of saying, this is a pre-recorded message.
Yep.
So yeah, every time you were saying that there was a sign that was addressed to you, even just in this first 2 minutes of you explaining it, was always making me think, I wonder if that's actually the remote team talking to you, or if that's Odin getting around him or it not being allowed to communicate with you.
Yes.
Constantly unsure of which of those it is. And the reason why I think I started thinking that as well is when the ad came up, because in my mind I'm like, this is a giant station, but it's a giant station because people need to move through here, not be here, and you're moving to some random wing of it. This probably isn't a billboard for billboard's sake.
Yeah. So
go on.
And
so then it's a matter of like, is this is this a way of the AI or something else sending you a message? Or is this another way of reinforcing or planting the idea that the space station is run by a separate entity to the AI company, which is a separate entity to the AR company? The AR company subsidizes all this AR is by putting ads everywhere.
Uh-huh.
And I'm kind of assuming that this is going to be a thing that will come up, I guess, because we have all these distinct different things that can't communicate with each other.
Right.
Is that they're not the same entity?
Could be it.
Yeah.
So I've heard 3 voices during the course of this play session. I've heard my own voice as the character of Amy. I've heard Minnie, who, as we were saying at the beginning, seems quite canned in her vocal style. And then I've heard Odin, who had a very rich voice that was full of character and full of intonation, and was quite compelling to listen to. I feel alone.
Yep.
Not just because I've been told that the station has been evacuated, but I feel very detached from other people. I feel like I'm in a circumstance where I have threads of communication with other people, but as you were just pointing out, Steve, I have no way of knowing whether those are trustworthy or genuine.
Yeah.
Because clearly something is amiss, but I don't know exactly what or why. Or, and I'm going to make an assumption here, that there's a difference between Minnie and Odin in terms of one being a conscious entity and the other one not.
Yep.
So if we're going to assume that
definitely.
Odin is a conscious thinking being, I don't know how Odin feels about me. And I also don't know if Amy is aware of what Odin is. I can assume that she may, but that would be the difference between Amy being aware of the software side of Odin versus the fact that I seem to be there to install a hardware replacement.
Yeah, and it planted for you, Minnie, don't let anyone scan the ship while I'm gone.
Yep.
And there's nothing here to scan the ship other than Odin.
I would assume so, yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So we've thrown around the word mystery before when we've talked about video games on this podcast. Does this feel like a mystery to you?
Not yet.
I guess what I'm trying to ask here is does this feel like something that I'm supposed to solve, or does this feel like it's something that I'm supposed to observe?
I mean, once again, like that's not. I feel like that's something that we can't answer based on these 10 minutes. Like, we can certainly infer from storytelling function that yes, ultimately there will be something for you to solve.
Right.
But even then, the actual particulars of that, we can't begin to, sort of formulate an idea of what that may be. Because there are so many different areas this can go to.
Yeah.
Just based on the details that are presented to us to begin with, like the idea of like, are we going to try and find out where everybody is?
Yep.
Are we going to look further into the nature of Odin?
Yep.
Is there some sort of nefarious purpose towards installing Minnie somewhere?
Yep.
All these sorts of things are all potentials.
Steve?
Well, from your descriptions and what we've heard so far, it strikes me as perhaps more of a thriller,
right?
Perhaps than mystery. I guess that's kind of.
We look forward to a Vincent Price voiceover at some point.
Perhaps.
Yeah. I love that none of us tried to do a Vincent Price just then.
No.
We all collectively thought about it, and then we're like, nah.
You do owe me some Springsteen in a moment, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. The given it's tinted by the topics that I raised earlier, but it feels like this is pushing you towards which of these things is going to be the thing that caused this.
Yeah.
With shocking revelations throughout, rather than straight unknown things for you to ponder.
Right. So here's the part that I'm the aspect of this that I'm genuinely curious about, and kind of my hidden motive for asking that loaded question is that I'm not sure that the answer to that really matters. I think what matters is that the game is making clear to me that whether it's solving or observing or anywhere in between or any other option, it's going to be Amy that does it, not me.
Yep.
And I'm really curious. I'm really curious to see as much about what is revealed about Amy as about the situation that she finds herself in.
That's kind of similar to the ultimate experience of Gone Home too, right?
Yeah.
Where, there is, in a sense, yes, there is a mystery to solve in that, one, where is everyone? Two, where is my younger sister specifically? But that all that stuff sort of unfolds gradually. It's not the sort of like there's no aha moment in Gone Home.
Yeah.
It's all there, and it's just naturally presented to you.
Yeah.
And it is experienced by the title, by the main character, not necessarily by you. You are but an observer with a degree of influence over movement.
Yep.
But it seems very similar in the sense that you're being enticed and invited to act out the part of the character.
Yes. Perform the role of Amy.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Yep. I mean, so many questions that I have, and I guess that's it's a testament to how much this game has already planted in my head in this brief sort of opening. But I really want to discover why this has happened to Odin. Not what has happened, but why it has happened. And I think that's an important distinction in terms of what my expectations of what I'm going to get out of this experience. Is that the why is the part that matters to me, not the what. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the why is always going to be the more significant of the two.
Yeah.
That's Twin Peaks in a nutshell. It's you get your answer to what very early on, the why.
The other thing that struck me from your description is the idea of a space bungalow terrifies me.
Yeah, that's yeah.
The only bungalows I've ever known were elaborate sheds in a backyard. Right. And I don't want one of those to be floating through space where I go holiday.
Well, maybe.
Yeah, for me, bungalows are dependent on vegetation.
Yeah.
Steve, maybe it's exactly what you want. You just didn't realize it yet.
You just didn't know it yet. Yep.
Although what I can say definitively and with absolute authority is that if you were to go to said bungalow and you were to turn on the space radio, you would probably hear Space Springsteen crooning.
Yep.
Aaron, can you help us out?
I sure can. Here we go. Well, I went to Tacoma today. Not the city, the one in space. Weren't too many folks around there. I'm gonna walk some, a tail to chase. There you go.
Bravo,
the gimmick maintains.
Absolutely. You've got to stop delivering so magnificently every time. Otherwise, I'd probably stop asking.
Yeah.
You're too kind. You're too. Well, okay, we've got a hat trick now. So just wait. I think we're heading, like, we've already gone to space. The shark has been jumped.
Okay, so I'm going to ask all of the listeners right now that if you're appreciating this effort that Aaron's making as much as Steve and I are, that pay attention to the Twitter handles at the end of the episode and make sure that you tweet at Aaron about how awesome these Springsteen refrains are. On that note, shall we do a 10-minute check?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Okay, has this game told me what it's about? Yeah. I'm a contractor called Amy. I have been sent, apparently alone, to this station where something has gone wrong with the AI. I'm there to reinstall a new one, but it feels a little bit ominous. I'm also wondering, because of my personal play history and how much I love games like System Shock 2, and the fact that this game is very reminiscent of that in its visual style and its field of view. But that game is about running away from crazy people who have been driven mad and are trying to murder you. And I'm hoping for and anticipating that the revelation of what's going on here is going to be no less disturbing, but perhaps without the combat murder aspect. That is an assumption.
Yeah. Totally.
I guess the point is that this game has told me that it's probably going to be about some kind of disturbing or troublesome things, but I'm not entirely sure what they are yet. Has it taught me how to play it? Yes, it has. But it's taught me in a kind of double-layered fashion. It's taught me a number of things about how to manipulate the video game controller to perform actions in the game, but it's also given me this other layer of information within the game that the character of Amy is experiencing. And all of these things feel like they were designed for the people in this world. And because I am a person, even though I'm not in this world, they still make sense to me and I'm still able to figure out how to do things. And I really appreciate that as a way of drawing me into the game world. So yeah, I think that means that it's time for the plugs.
It is. So if you'd like to get in contact with us, you could email us. That email address would be contact@thefirst10minutes.com. Alternatively, you can find us on Twitter, SoundCloud, Libsyn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, and Patreon, where we are the first 10 minutes, where you can also holler at us and let us know what you think, give us some feedback. We appreciate all of it. And as always, if you've enjoyed this, we appreciate reviews and recommends. So if you got some time and are so inclined, leaving a review on iTunes can be greatly useful to us.
Yes, super appreciated.
As can letting a friend know that this is a thing worth their approximately 40 megabytes of download. And
please tell all your friends if you think that this is something that they would enjoy. We'd really appreciate it, because you, the listeners, are our best and in fact, in many ways, only way of growing an audience. So we do appreciate your support. Also, I do recommend going to our YouTube channel. We've started doing some Let's Play videos. There's a bunch of content going up there, so please check it out. And if you are enjoying it, then let us know. And subscribing to that channel would also be appreciated. In terms of letting us know, if you do want to get in touch with me personally, I am at Kalinskald on Twitter. That's KALINSKALD. I also do a game developer interview podcast series called Downloadable Context, which you can find at downloadablecontext.com or at DLContext on Twitter. Aaron, if people want to tell you how much they love the Springsteen stuff, how can they do that?
If you want to talk to me about anything Springsteen related, you can get in touch with me personally at Poison Tasty Fish. If you'd like to talk to me about the essays that I write on narrative and how it can be delivered effectively in video games, you can head to @PushingB on Twitter or pushingb.com to visit Pushing Buttons.
I'm looking forward to your Tacoma piece, which I'm assuming will happen at some point in the future.
Yes, expect it in 3.5 years.
Nice. All right, Steve, start the countdown. And if you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter at _Steve Halliwell, or you can find me via my website, stevehalliwell.com.
Magnificent. So that does it for another week. We hope you've enjoyed this special double episode week. That did happen because we reached a follower threshold on Twitter. We'll be setting a new goal to aim towards, and that is very much in your hands, listeners. So if you do want to have another one of these double feature weeks, then get out and let more people know, and we get more followers on Twitter, and we'll do some more of this for you. So thank you all very much for listening, and we will catch you again next time.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.